when was the last time you thought about going to a museum? Well, today we decided to drop by the Museum of Sydney, and I'm here with Matt. Matt, tell us about the regular exhibits you have on here.
Well, we're the Museum of Sydney. We built on the site of First Government House. So some of the exhibits that we've got on at the moment are the models of the First Fleet ships. We also have the Panorama Gallery. We've got an exhibition about rockabilly photographs of Sydney's rockabilly culture. We also have Cadigal Place, which looks at the early Aboriginal inhabitants of the Sydney area.
Fantastic. And what's the interactive part that you've got downstairs?
Well, we've got the Storylines Gallery, and there people can choose video interactives where people telling the story about Sydney's history.
Very interesting. Now, what do we have here? Can you walk me through?
Yep, well, this is the Flying Boats exhibition. This looks at Sydney's first international airport, which was actually at Rose Bay, and it ran from 1938 until 1974.
Amazing.
So it looks at the early days, golden age of air travel in Sydney. We look at Sydney also during the war, because the flying boats played a very important part during the war, and also things like honeymoons and holidays that people would take to places like Lord Howe Island, South Pacific destinations, and all these memories that people will have of the flying boats in Sydney.
Wonderful. And what do we have here? What's this?
Well, here we've done a recreation of what's called a promenade cabin, which was on an Empire flying boat. And this was a cabin where people would socialise, they'd meet, have drinks. You can see people playing quoits, putting with golf, all the sort of things that people would have done in air travel in a more glamorous era.
And that's the diagram here as well?
Yeah, well this poster here shows the promenade cabin here, and you can see people had windows at eye height so they could enjoy the passing view.
It's huge.
Yeah, well it was a very big plane. It only took about between 14 and 17 passengers, much different to air travel these days.
Yep.
And of course lots of room for people to stroll around, enjoy their martinis and their various meals.
Fantastic. Now, I believe this exhibit is quite close to your heart as well. Your parents had connections to this too, didn't they?
Yeah, that's true. Well, both my parents worked on the flying boats. My father was an engineer, worked there from 1947 until 1974, and that's where he met my mother, who was an air hostess, and she worked there from 1956 until 1962.
And do we have a photo of her coming up around here?
Yeah, I managed to feature her in something. There's Mum there, looking at a honeymoon couple and their ring on the way to Lord Howe Island.
Oh, fantastic. And I believe we can find your dad here too.
Yeah, I managed to slip him into a few photos. There he is up on the wing there.
Wow.
In the late 40s.
In Rose Bay?
Yep, and then also in the early 70s.
That's him on the propeller?
Yeah, doing a bit of maintenance work there.
Fantastic. So what are we watching here, Matt?
Well, this is a special 20-minute film that we commissioned for the exhibition, and it just interviews all the people that worked on the flying boats right from the beginning to the end of their time in Sydney.
Great.
Yeah, so it uses a lot of historical footage, interviews that we did with people, and yeah, a lot of the stuff that shows people what it was actually like on the flying boats.
Fantastic. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for that tour.
That's all right.
Now, I found that absolutely fascinating. So you have to make sure you come down and try the Museum of Sydney or a museum in your city.